The owners had gathered around for lottery day. All had the same goal, but different theories. The commissioner explained that the first pick was based on playing cards. The one who drew the ace would be the holder of pick number 1. That person was a man who is regarded as a man with greedy temptations. Ace, bitch! John Ahern, also known as The Fresh, was the chosen one. With high expectations on his mind, Johnny J. Fresh Ahern had nothing but Super Bowl written in his mind. As for our two Super Bowl contenders right now, Matthew Morris drew the 5 pick while Rob Coffey drew the 7. And interesting events turned once divisions were selected. John Ahern, with the number 1 pick, had something to say about a certain member in his division. Oh my god, I'm so happy Matt Morris is in my division. I always wanted this. Even if we drafted divisions, Matt Morris, oh my god. Best player to have in my division. I'm winning this fucking league. With shots fired and certainly lit a fire in Matthew Morris, it would unleash the beast. With the Alan Williams ship sailing on a cruise, it also opened the gate for an unexpected return of a really, really interesting person. It was officially time. The commissioner had gathered around all the opponents, all the owners, and himself for Christmas in August, the NFL Draft. With everybody unable to contain their emotions, it looked like this was going to be yet another exciting fantasy season. With all the owners gathered around with all their interesting theories, and some of them playing conservative theories, some looked to build onto their legacy, and some look to prove wrong all the doubters. Matt Morris and Rob Coffey each had middle picks in this draft. With many of the game's top running backs being obvious top 4 picks, it left a big question mark into Matthew Morris, wondering, who would he take? Would it be a hype running back or a proven veteran? You guessed it. Marshawn Lynch was taken with the 5th overall pick, hoping to provide a veteran spark into Matthew's team, who was out of the league, by the way, last season. As for our defending champ, he goes by many names, but one thing is for certain, he is the compulsive gambler. and he would put all his chips into one man, a man who he faced in the Super Bowl. Denver running back C.J. Anderson was chosen at the 7 pick. With all the hype surrounding him, it actually created a lot of speculation beforehand, and here's what a few people had to say. Well, I think that, C.J. Anderson, he brought me onto a title run. Had a lot of, a lot of volume, I think, and with Peyton Manning's arm being kind of shot, I figured that this guy was going to carry the load yet again. And he was consistently getting touchdowns. I had hyped him up beforehand, and I kind of knew that Rob was going to be the one to take him. Honestly, I knew this shit was going to happen, and it was a terrible fucking pick. Literally, I know Antonio Brown was taken, but honestly, would have gone Jeremy Hill. No way I was trusting TJ Anderson. Absolutely no way. As the draft came to a conclusion, the results were certainly in. However, a Bay Area trade sent Amari Cooper and Latavius Murray switching teams, and the hype surrounding Max's Jarvis Landry pick created a lot of commotion that took everybody's thoughts away from our 2 Super Bowl contenders. For Matthew Morris, creating a running back stacked strategy left him with 2 veteran wide receivers who would go on to have very servable seasons. However, there was one young stud taken in the 3rd round who exceeded mostly everybody's expectations. As for Rob Coffey, he looked to reunite with his Super Bowl pal, Rob Gronkowski, who helped him win his first Super Bowl title. Then, the hype was on, as 3 second-year wide receivers were taken. Would they live up to expectations? That was the biggest question mark. After the draft, many people bought into one player's team. However, doubts surrounded another one. Week 1 was officially underway. NFL season had finally began. Our 2 Super Bowl contenders both had interesting starts to their seasons. In Week 1 matchups, both did not go down without a fight. For Team Coffey, 3 touchdowns on opening night with Rob Gronkowski gave him the advantage. And then an easy victory against Rob Messia when Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews sealed the deal. As for Matthew Morris, a different fate was decided. He would go one-on-one with the man who doubted him the most, John Ahern. In this epic matchup, it began a clash of 2 rivals who certainly did not see the end after this matchup. The stage was set for round 1. The matchup between Johnny and Matthew was extremely close, but something seemed to go really wrong for Matt. The Ravens ran into arguably the best defense in the league in the Denver Broncos, and Matthew Stafford's struggles had continued, leaving Johnny Ahern the victor for round 1. While Johnny may have won this battle, he certainly did not win the war. Despite going 2-0, there were a lot of question marks surrounding Rob Coffey's team. Was he a contender or was he a pretender? With only 117 points being the highest scoring total by Rob, it created a lot of doubts about whether this team was for real or whether it was just another pretending fake. With Russell Wilson struggling to get his ass off of the ground constantly, and a CJ Anderson ankle injury, Davante Adams certainly wasn't helping either, as he was unable to live up to the fourth round hype. Luckily for Coffey, he got a certain call from a certain someone. With Tevin Coleman getting hurt week 2 against the New York Giants, it opened the trade market for a certain team. One man who was interested was our Super Bowl champ from last season, Rob Coffey. John Ahern was looking to sell high on an opportune-based Devonta Freeman and a Dion Lewis who, despite putting up great numbers, thought that maybe the fumbling issues were a big problem. While the two were talking, there was one problem: Davante Adams. With all of the hype coming out into the preseason, Johnny was still buying into it, and so was Rob. It was very hard for Rob to let go on Davante Adams, but in order for a three-way deal to get done, he had to be included in the deal. Personally, I got a phone call because I was actually going to be involved in a three-way deal with this because I think the Eagles backs were involved. And Rob had contacted me about not trying to get rid of Davante Adams, but he was leaning towards maybe he should do it because he hasn't shown anything yet, but he thinks he'll be good in the long run. He really didn't show anything, so I just told him with what you're getting, I think he should go for it. And Johnny actually contacted me as well, and I said, yeah, it's probably a fair trade for both of them because I actually, too, was now buying onto Dion Lewis. With 3 days with the trade talks, it was completed. John Ahern would send Tevin Coleman, Devonta Freeman, and Dion Lewis in exchange for Ryan Matthews, Darren Sproles, and the man who was hard to give up on, Davante Adams. While Adams was a huge loss for Coffey, in his mind at least, it would open the door for a breakout running back. The compulsive gambler strikes again, and victory is his. Devonta Freeman, in his first start with the Atlanta Falcons, crushed the Dallas Cowboys, the Houston Texans, and the Washington Redskins, going on a 3-game tear that has been documented in fantasy history as one of the best. Freeman was on the face of everybody's DraftKings and everybody's draft list for next season. Luckily for Coffey, it looked like he found his running back one that CJ Anderson and others could not deliver. In a Week 6 matchup, it was a rematch. A rematch that both opponents were looking very forward to. The Super Bowl rematch. You know, we were only a 2-win team at the time, but we started to get in the groove of things. We were good in our division. We came off of a huge win. It was definitely the time, I think, that I wanted to play him, and it was good that it came in the middle of the season rather than the beginning or the end. And we had to watch out for Devonta Freeman, obviously, but that was the big thing. With Rob Coffey going up against a rejuvenated Phillip Rivers, a DeMarco Murray who finally broke out against the New Orleans Saints, and arguably one of the scariest fantasy wide receivers, Odell Beckham Jr., it was going to be an epic showdown. Despite Phillip Rivers having one heck of a game, Devonta Freeman once again, for the fourth straight game, proved to be victorious. For Team Coffee, they edged out a 12-point victory, courtesy of the man, Devonta Freeman. Freeman once again proved to everybody that he was the fantasy running back to own this season. However, for one young stud, he challenged that theory. For Team Coffee, Devonta Freeman was his workhorse. Team Morris found one in Todd Gurley. For the first few weeks of the season, he sat out with a gruesome injury he suffered in college football. However, in just his second start, just like Freeman, the world fell in love with Todd Gurley. Week after week after week, just like Devonta Freeman, he proved that maybe this guy would be the new one, the chosen one for a running back backfield. And of course, he lived up to Matt's team name, the bearer of the bad backs. Still, something was missing for Team Morris. Matt Stafford was very inconsistent throughout the whole season, and it proved that maybe a quarterback flaw would bring this team down. Or maybe Larry Donnell's injury and the high hopes Matt had for him at a tight end spot would also make this team very beatable. Nonetheless, there were other things, such as obstacles, that both Morris and Rob Coffey would have to overcome. All that and more during Part 2.